On the day of his middle school graduation, Mirai stood at the top of the building, and only darkness clouded his mind. Having lived his life without any happiness, he decided to passionately hug the ground. He nosedived to make a somersault into the cement, but an angel caught him, and he thought he was being taken to heaven. However, the angel introduced herself as Nase, and she's glad to have saved him from becoming a pancake. Mirai struggles to believe this reality and sees his reflection floating in the window. He still wants to be made a flat pancake, having already given up ever since his brother and parents died 7 years ago, and when his aunt and uncle took him in. He would watch as his parents enjoyed actual time with their kids, while he was just locked up in their trash room. He became nothing but a tool for them, and slept every single day in that room alone shivering. He thought there was no longer any hope in his future, but Nase flew him away and told him she's a special rank angel. She has the powers to give him everything in this world, whether he wants freedom or love. Mirai definitely thinks he ate something expired or actually hit the ground and he's entered nirvana, but the angel tells him to start with freedom. Since he's been nothing but a slave his entire life, she offers him wings to fly and be free everywhere in this world. Additionally, if he wants love, she can summon a magical crystal arrow, and whoever is hit by it will fall instantly in love with him. Either the wings or arrows, she can give him as a last salvation. But Mirai doesn't want to choose, so he commands her to give him both of them. Nase tells him she will, and says it was just tradition to phrase it like he can choose one. Mirai has had enough of this trip and decides to go back to hugging the ground. But Nase throws the magical circles to give him an armband and a necklace. He doesn't need to worry, though, because only people who also have angels will be able to view them. This is going to be his life until a new god is chosen, but she tells him to just try flying already. With a single thought of flying, his wings materialize from thin air, and he takes off at super speed towards the sky. He struggles to control his speed through the clouds, but eventually makes it above them and sees the sunset. All night he spent flying, thinking it felt more amazing to fly than he ever imagined, and began crying. He makes it back to the city and thinks there might be some hope to live after all. Today was St. Patrick's Day in Tokyo, and he remembered giving his childhood love the 4-leaf clover. While sitting and looking at the sky, Nase comes again and tells him he can steal anything he would ever want with his super speed. And with the arrow, he can make anyone fall in love with him and do anything. Mirai doesn't understand how she can call herself an angel since she's preaching the actions of a devil. But Nase tells him devils don't exist. If anything, they're inside the hearts of evil people like his uncle and aunt who killed people. Mirai wonders what she's talking about, and she reveals that his uncle and aunt were the ones who killed his parents. This entire time, he'd been bullied by them and treated like a slave. Mirai's mind breaks, thinking the angel must be lying to claim they killed his family. But Nase tells him to use the arrow to find out for himself. He flies back home, and his aunt tells him to hurry up and move from the doorway already. Mirai wants to ask her something, but she tells him to shut up and hurry up. He points his arm towards her and releases white liquid directly on her chest. Sorry, I meant fires an arrow directly into her chest. When she gets up, his aunt rushes towards him and is ready to develop plot with her massive cannons. But Mirai pushes her off. He asks her if they were the ones to end his family, and she breaks down and blames it all on her husband. His uncle enters the room and sees his wife crying, but she reveals everything. Her husband is the one who rigged the car to blow just to steal his family's fortune, and his memories of that day flash in his head. His parents had went to drive his brother to school, and he was going to get his project ready, but when his father turned the car on, it exploded. They continue wrestling, and his wife reveals that it was all for the insurance money. The thought of them doing this for money breaks Mirai's mind, and he says they should have been the ones to die instead. His aunt hears this, and the next thing he knew, his aunt wanted to know what nirvana was like. Nase explains that this is the power of his red arrow. If someone has done something that deserves trying to meet the Buddha, then they will meet the Buddha if he commands it. He collapses, realizing how easily people die. He's still alive after all of this, and he remembers the memories his mother left him with. When he showed her his family portrait, his mom told him that everyone is born with the goal of finding happiness and trying to attain greater happiness, so she wanted him to live a happy life. At that moment, it became clear to Mirai. He must try to keep living to reach happiness, and the angel tells him that he's right. And she's here to make sure she can help him become happy. She finally introduces herself as Nase, and she's going to be his personal angel. A few days later, Mirai sits in the hotel. He's broke and couldn't afford a room, so he used the arrow to get the staff to let him stay here. Even if he can steal everything through this power, none of it would make him happy. He wants to have an ordinary sense of happiness, but first he needs to start making money. Nase tells him to end his uncle and kids to take back all the money they made off him. However, Mirai can't handle the idea of seeing all the gore like the previous time, so instead, he can use the other white arrow she granted him. This white arrow instantly kills people peacefully, and she tries to explain the reason behind all these abilities. God has become weak after a long life of attempting to make Earth a better place. He appointed 13 angels to find humans who will be capable of serving as the new God, and Nase was excited to finally allow Mirai to be happy. They had a time limit of 999 days, and they all set off. What in the f***ing Mirai Nikki is this shit? After listening to all of this, Mirai, wait, even his f***ing name is Mirai. On the TV, he sees a person being followed by an angel, and sees that he's manipulated 5 women to fall in love with him. Mirai wonders if there's a way to protect himself from being shot, and Nase goes on to explain the rules of the arrow. The only way for someone to avoid an arrow is by flying faster using the wings. Additionally, the effects of red arrows expire after 33 days, and you can only shoot a person once. Finally, you can at most shoot 14 arrows within 33 days, which is probably what the person on TV did. Inside a car, plot develops. I mean a lot of plot develops. I mean way too much plot develops. They beg him for some protein shake, but as he thinks this life is amazing, some Mega Man suit in armor opens the car door and points a white arrow at him, instantly ending him. He takes his red arrow and flies away. The next day, Mirai reads the news about the guy dying, and the angel brings his body back to heaven. Luda, the angel carrying him, is glad that this person perished. While walking through the city, Nase congratulates him on getting into his top high school, and thinks he must be really smart for shooting his uncle with a red arrow to confess. She tries to cheer him up but realizes this guy snorts depression instead of copium, so she asks him why he's not as happy as he should be. He reveals that he's mostly scared about the death of the other god candidate. Inside the center of the city, a bank robbery is taking place, but Superman's rip-off appears to save the day, Metropoliman. What a f***ing name. He begins flying above the police, shooting them all with red arrows and claims that he is here to save the day. He faces off with the criminal and approaches him, vanishing right next to the person to block their gun. He shoots him with the red arrow, and the criminal agrees to turning himself in. His comrade, however, attempts to end Metropolitan, but he ends up firing at his own friend instead. The criminal fires the shotgun, and Metropolitan vanishes before the bullets reach him, readying a white arrow and ending the criminal. Nase realizes that his angel must be a special rank, and Metropolitan goes on to announce that there are 12 enemies that are aiming for him. He's already defeated one, so he announces on every television station that he's looking to end the other 11. Mirai commands Nase to disappear before Metropolitan sees her. He tries to blend in with the crowd and heads home. Later that day, he asks for Nase to revoke his god candidate status. Even though she saved his life, he doesn't want to be killed by Metropolitan. However, she reveals that taking away his arrow and wings would end his life. After all, those wings and arrow were given to him only because he gave up on everything. It was God's command to only select candidates ready to give up on life. She tells him that special ranks angels give wings, red arrows and white arrows, while first ranks give both wings and arrow, and second ranks only gave wings or arrows. However, an angel's rank can change at any point, and Mirai wonders what he should do in this situation. The next day, he heads off to school without Nase, and she tells him to shoot Saki, his childhood crush, with a red arrow. He should try to make her fall in love with him within those 33 days, but Mirai pledges he won't use the arrow to do that. He goes to school and thinks that today will be his first fresh start, but in the sky, an angel appears. The thought of it strikes fear into him, but he tries to pretend like it doesn't exist. However, in that instant, the angel realizes his presence and vanishes before him, shocking Mirai. This reaction confirms that Mirai is a god candidate since he can see the angel, and the angel reveals his god candidate is standing right behind him. He sees Saki, and she shoots him with her red arrow. Even though he's been shot by the arrow, he's always been in love with Saki, but the arrow's power compels him to confess. She tells him her parents aren't home and that he can come over, so the simp flies at sonic speed to her house. He waits inside her room until she finally appears. Saki goes on to ask him if he possesses white arrows, and he confesses that he does. The angel worries that he's Metropolitan, but says that he isn't. Revel, the angel, tries to explain the reason behind shooting him with the arrow. He wants him to become Saki's wings since she doesn't have any. Mirai agrees to become her wings, and they form a pact with each other by putting their hands together. The simp climaxes, and a bond forms around their hands. He hugs her from behind and climaxes again, so he takes off before she notices. They fly together in the sky, and Mirai remembers the times they used to spend together as kids. He takes her above the sky and tells her to let him know if anything's bothering her because he'll always be there for her. Saki tells him that it's a personal problem, but she'll be fine. She's glad to have talked with him, however, and she tears up. After a while, Saki gets news of Metropoliman going on a TV station at 6 p.m. The angel warns him that he might kill Saki if Metropoliman continues living, so Saki's red arrow compels him to find him. He says if it comes down to it, he will sacrifice himself for Saki. However, Nase appears and tells him not to be so rash. She knows this was probably Revel's plans, the angel of mischief. If he was to die, then his wings and arrow would transfer to Saki. But if Metropoliman died, then the arrow would have compelled him to give those wings and arrows to Saki as well. Either way, Revel would have won. This horrible plan is the reason that Revel is a second-rank angel, and Nase's purity is what makes her a special rank angel. Revel confesses that he was just trying to set them up, but agrees that he will form a truce so they can both succeed. However, he's still worried about Murai's actions once the arrow wears off, but Nase assures him that Murai climaxes to Saki at least once a day.
Stop it. Get some help.
Revel is creeped out. A month passes of them spending time together, and they tie Murai to a chair to make sure he won't do anything to Saki. Revel believes that these are his true feelings, and Murai isn't angry at Saki for shooting him, because he at last got to confess his feelings and realized how important it is. He will not allow someone like Metropoliman to ruin his happiness with her, and Saki agrees because she's been wanting to be happy since she's been with him. Murai sees her blushing and climaxes, and the angel asks him if he's still under the arrow's effects. Poor guy can't stop climaxing. The news station comes on, and Metropoliman asks for all the other candidates to come and reach a peaceful solution with him. At the baseball stadium, he will be awaiting all the other candidates. Murai wonders how people who aren't in Japan would make it without wings, but Nase tries to explain that all the god candidates are from Japan because people like to meet the Buddha in Japan. Murai tries to think of a plan of attack. At the stadium the next day, Murai sees angels hovering over the sky and wonders just how many god candidates are going to be there. Saki warns him to stop staring before the angels notice him, and Murai prepares for the moment to shoot Metropoliman with a red arrow. At 3 p.m., Metropoliman appears before everyone on the field, and soon after, yellow and blue Power Rangers appear, possessing both red arrows and wings. They fire the red arrow at Metropoliman, but it can't pierce through, causing them to realize this was a trap after all. This is likely just a random person who was shot with his arrows and dropped here to lure out the other god candidates. They try to call out for Metropoliman, and think that this plan will finally turn their life around. One of them remembers entrance exam results being posted, and how he was crushed for being rejected. He sat alone and another man came crying for also being rejected. He had failed once already, but the guy in the green shirt had failed 3 times already. Before hugging the ground, they decided to enjoy every last moment of their life. As the last train started coming, angels appeared before both of them and granted them the arrows along with wings. They understood the laws and the government better than anyone else, so they promised each other to make it to the top and make a better life for each other. They know that a god candidate can only shoot an arrow every 2 seconds and that the arrow's range is only 31.6 meters, making this baseball field the best place for an attack. Nase and Revel didn't even know that the arrows had such a specific range. And finally, the screen turns on with Metropoliman's face. He reveals that they were correct about the Metropoliman in front of them being a fake, and goes on to show his red and white arrows, explaining that he can fire arrows every 0.3 seconds instead of 2 seconds since he has 2 of them. He bids them farewell, but the men restrain his fake copy. A girl starts flying in the sky and begs the 2 others to take her with them since she's scared of Metropoliman. She doesn't want to die after being bullied all her life, and Murai realizes that Saki was likely going through something as well. She allows them to shoot her with a red arrow, but as she approaches, Metropoliman takes a red arrow and shoots her, telling them that they can't hesitate like that. He disappears once more and promises to get rid of them since they were so slow. The men try to form an alliance with all the other god candidates here, and promise to work with them to take Metropoliman down. Before they knew it, a pink and green Power Ranger enter the chat. They shoot the green and pink Power Ranger with red arrows to form their alliance, but while they're distracted, something changed about Metropoliman behind them. The announcer goes on to announce that the Super Civilization Squad of Metro 5 has assembled. They think that they have the numbers advantage here, but Mirai feels like something is off. The two Power Rangers ask them to reveal their arrows, but they say that they don't know what those are. The giant screen turns on once more, and Metropolimon tries to speak, but announces that he's not the actual Metropolimon. The real one is behind them, and he prepares two arrows to shoot directly at them. The blue Power Ranger is knocked out by the white arrow, and the yellow one is hit directly with the red one. The yellow one has now become the servant of Metropolimon, and asks if he could know how this happened. Metropolimon reveals that green and pink were actually just humans who were obeying him to distract them from Metropolimon's location. But Yellow wonders how they were able to be shot with red arrows. Metropolimon reveals he can control people without red arrows, and explains that he can do anything with money. He sees the angel trying to sneak out without handing him the wings and arrows, but commands it to hand them off before leaving. He has now gained a total of 4 arrows and 2 wings. Now for the spectacle of the show. He has tied up Power Ranger Yellow with the girl, and he wants to test the limits of the red arrow. Yellow promises that he would do anything, but then Metropolimon commands him to die. Yellow rejects that command, so Metropolimon goes on to point a white arrow towards him. Yellow begins trying to fly for his life, but the restraints keep him from moving. Metropolimon fires the white arrow, and Yellow has entered Nirvana. Next is the girl, and Revel is worried that Mirai is going to try and intervene. He struggles to think of what to do in this situation, knowing that if he hesitates even slightly, he could end his and Saki's life. The angel tries to stop Metropolimon from shooting the girl, and she begins yelling for someone to help her. Metropolimon continues trying to provoke the other god candidates to react.